in its fight against the Russian military. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin acknowledging for the first time the US is providing intelligence to Ukraine as the war moves to the Donbass region. Russia is concentrating on areas in the east, which it already partly controls. Regional authorities say Russian forces have been hitting hospitals, train stations, and other civilian infrastructure. And Ukraine's foreign minister says the heaviest fighting in the Donbass region is yet to come, and when it does, battles will be reminiscent of World War II. Meantime, Russian forces have withdrawn from areas around the capital, Kyiv, and they've left behind an apocalyptic scene of death and destruction. 26 bodies have been found in the rubble of 2 buildings in Borodyanka. Ukraine's president says Russia is the greatest threat on the planet to freedom and security.
After Bucha, this is already obvious, and the work on dismantling the debris in Borodyanka began. It's much worse there.
Ukraine's foreign minister says negotiations will continue with Russia to try and prevent more Buchas, but more atrocities from that city are now coming to light, as well as the stories of the victims. And Phil Black's report now contains some very graphic images and very disturbing details.
Irina Filkina in a happier time, before the Russians came. It's likely this video shows Irina after the invasion in early March, just moments before her death. She's seen cycling through Bucha, heading towards a large number of Russian vehicles. As she approaches a corner, she dismounts. One of the vehicles fires. She moves around the corner, out of sight, and it fires again and again, at least 5 more times. Then, a large muzzle flash from a second concealed vehicle. Moments later, smoke rises from near that corner. A different video, geolocated by CNN, to the same corner shows a dead woman on the ground next to a bike. Other images of that body clearly show her hand and her distinctive nails. The woman who only recently taught Irina how to apply makeup recognized them instantly.
He drew hearts on her finger because she started to love herself. This woman was incredible.
Olga Shiruk didn't need to see the nails to know that was her mother's body. She tells me she doesn't know what she feels now. It's such a void, she says. When I saw it was my mother, the war faded away. The war ended with her, and I lost the war. Olga says her mother called her while she was cycling that day, not long before she was killed. She'd been sheltering at her workplace and decided to go home because she thought it would be safer. Tell us about your mother. How would you like the world to know her? She says Irina had a hard life, overcoming obstacles, only really starting to live in the last 2 years. But she could do the impossible and inspired others to believe they could too. Elsewhere in Bucha, someone recorded the moment 3 men were found, all shot in the head. This video is how Olga Goraviluk found out her son Roman and son-in-law Sergei had been killed. She says, I don't want to live anymore. The grief. I cry day and night. I don't know how to live. Images from Bucha have taught the world undeniable truths about the brutality of Russia's invasion. For some, that knowledge is deeply personal and impossibly painful. Phil Black, CNN, Lviv, Ukraine.
A symbolic show of support in the coming hours. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will meet with President Zelensky in the capital, Kyiv. The time of their meeting has not been disclosed for security reasons. On Thursday, the EU also slapped a 5th wave of sanctions on Moscow. They include a ban on coal imports, on selling high-tech products to Moscow. EU ports will now be off limits to Russian vessels. In a response, Russia singled out Italy, saying its support for sanctions is indecent. Italy's Prime Minister called that hypocrisy.
About that declaration of indecent sanctions, the only indecency are the massacres we see every day.
Russia has also lost its seat on the UN Human Rights Council because of the brutality of its military offensive here in Ukraine. The General Assembly voted Thursday to suspend Moscow's membership. But before the vote, sources say Russia circulated a letter threatening, quote, consequences against countries that supported that measure. The US ambassador to the United Nations said the suspension sends an important message.
Right now, the world is looking to us. They are asking if the United Nations is prepared to meet this moment. Today, the international community took one collective step in the right direction. We ensured a persistent and egregious human rights violator will not be allowed to occupy a position of leadership on human rights at the UN. Let us continue to hold Russia accountable for this unprovoked, unjust, unconscionable war, and to do everything in our power to stand with the people of Ukraine.
But the big question, how much effect can these diplomatic and economic moves have on changing minds in the Kremlin? For that, we're joined by CNN's European Affairs commentator, Dominic Thomas. He's with us now from Paris. Dominic, thank you for joining us. Suspending Russia from the Human Rights Council, sanctions on Putin and his daughters, all of this is symbolic. It's meant to send a message to the Russian president. But is Putin not hearing the outrage and disapproval, but is he hearing sort of weakness and impotence?
At the end of the day, I don't think he cares one little bit about these sort of international attempts to have recourse to courts, legislation, and so on, and is not concerned about the enforceability of all of this. Having said that, these are part of the multi-pronged, Western response to his actions that include, sanctions, humanitarian assistance, military aid, and so on. I think that beyond seeing a kind of weakness here, I think what he is fastening in upon is a kind of vulnerability where he sees a question around the kind of the will of the United States, of the European Union, and of the different European unions. Different countries have different relationships, of course, to this conflict and to what Ukraine has been asking all the time, and is persistent in his goal of trying to undermine the multilateral order. And the more he does that, the more he can attack on some kind of level of weakness here.
Yeah, and when it comes to the impact of these economic sanctions, I want you to listen to a former Deputy General Secretary of NATO on her opinion on how Putin sees all of this. Here she is.
I think in the end of the day, President Putin doesn't care that much about the economy. He would be happy enough returning to the planned economy of the Soviet Union. That's what he seems to indicate. I don't think he understands a lot about the nuance of international economic practice and what a healthy economy looks like from a Western perspective.
So he doesn't care. He doesn't care the impact on Russian population, the hardships that they'll be feeling. So does this now come down to Russian oil and gas? If economic sanctions are to be effective, Europe has to bite the bullet, shut off the Russian gas. Forget about China throwing Russia an economic lifeline. Europe is sending Moscow a lifeline every day it pays for energy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And within that equation, which is not surprising that the leadership went and specifically singled out Italy because of their gross dependency on Russian energy. But Germany is the one that stands up. And as you know, it's a country going through a remarkable transition after 16 years of Angela Merkel being at the helm. It's a complex coalition government in which the Greens play a major role. In fact, the foreign secretary is one of the former leaders of the Green Party. And the long-term goals of Germany are renewable energy. But short-term, they're struggling to manage and balance their economic goals, their economic policy interests, and so on. But it is unambiguously clear that until they stop buying Russian energy, and until they do that as soon as possible, they are effectively undermining the efforts that are being made to curb Russia's aggression towards Ukraine. And so that is, at the moment, the question of the embargo on oil and gas is absolutely front and center in terms of impacting the Russian economy and Putin.
I want you to listen to the former US President Barack Obama and his assessment of the Russian president right now. Here he is.
I don't know that the person I knew is the same as the person who is now leading this charge. For him to bet the farm in this way, I would not have necessarily predicted from him 5 years ago.
So is the West working from an outdated assessment of Putin, assuming that he's rational?
I think that certainly historically, dealing with Russia has meant appeasing, managing. Let's not forget that former President Trump was pushing to have the Russian Federation back into the group of the G7, G8. Those days are clearly over. I would actually say that on the contrary, there is a clear awareness that they are dealing now with a non-rational actor, and that there's been tremendous restraint, therefore, because of the real risk of escalation being presented here by President Putin. But having said that, the recent coverage, the incredible work that's been done by correspondents, by journalists, and by reporters are uncovering war crimes, genocide, and a clear link between the language of the Russian leadership and the intentionality and the actions that are taking place on the ground. And I think that we're at a crucial turning point where public opinion does not understand why they are watching this country being systematically destroyed and why they are witnessing the kinds of crimes and massacres that are taking place on the ground. And thus far, certainly, the ways in which they've been dealing with this have been conscientious, restraint, but ultimately you could argue that they are not achieving the desired impact. And I think that the days and weeks ahead are therefore going to be crucial in recalibrating this policy to stop this kind of outcome.
Dominic Thomas, thank you so much for being with us. It does beg the question, when will the West grow a spine and stand up to this man? But we thank you. Thank you, Dominic. Well, to the southeast now, and the port city of Mykolaiv, where nowhere is safe from Russian strikes, including the city's cancer hospital, or a market full of civilians. CNN's Ben Wiedemann met some of the victims of Russia's brutality there, and others desperately trying to flee to safer ground.
This has become Mykolaiv's daily routine, picking up the pieces, sweeping away the wreckage from Russian missile attacks. Random shelling throughout the city with what appear to be cluster munitions. Glass shards and shrapnel tore into Marina. As she lies in a hospital, her thoughts are with her teenage daughter, also injured, now at a children's hospital. My daughter and I were caught between two bombs, she recalls. It's a miracle we're still alive. It was terrifying. The hospital where Marina is recovering was hit in the morning. Dirt covers the blood from one of the injured. Closed-circuit television video from the city's cancer hospital captures the moment it was struck. Earlier this week, a missile barrage killed 9 people and wounded more than 40 at this market. We were able to count 23 impact points in a radius of just 100 meters, and each one of these incoming rounds sprays shrapnel in every direction. Danilo was working in this store and rushed outside when he heard the blasts. Over there, a woman was screaming, "Help me!" Her leg was shattered, he says. Behind the store, 2 people were killed. Dried blood and flowers marked the spot where people died. Last week, a bomb struck the regional governor's office, killing 36 people. Every day in Mykolaiv, this relentless bombardment shatters any semblance of normal life. Mid-afternoon, and people line up to escape the danger. This bus bound for Poland. Victoria cradles her 1-year-old daughter, Ivanna. Her husband stays behind. Soon we'll be back home, says Victoria. Everything will be all right. How soon that will be, nobody knows. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Mykolaiv.
When we come back, for many Ukrainians who've been wounded by Russian shelling or airstrikes or missile attacks, there are now no nearby medical facilities to treat their injuries. They've all been damaged or destroyed. So they come here to Lviv, hundreds of miles away, for a chance to live. That story just ahead.
Should have called a pro.
19 minutes past the hour. Welcome back, everybody. Well, this war now into its 7th week, and as it drags on, more and more Ukrainians are making that difficult decision to pack up everything they have and leave their homes behind and head to safety. The UN says more than 4.3 million Ukrainians have made the decision to leave this country. Over 7 million have fled and are now internally displaced, leaving the east for the west. Hospitals are among the civilian infrastructure which has been targeted. The World Health Organization says there have been more than 100 attacks on Ukrainian health care facilities, with dozens killed and wounded.
Attacks on healthcare are a violation of international humanitarian law. Peace is the only way forward. I again call on the Russian Federation to stop the war.
Healthcare facilities, especially in the east, have been so badly damaged by the Russian onslaught. Many wounded civilians must now come here to Lviv in the west for life-saving medical care. It is a long and difficult journey. CNN's Jake Tapper has that story.
Just as Putin's forces did in Syria, so too are they targeting hospitals and medical centers here in Ukraine. 279 hospitals have been damaged since the war started, according to the Ukrainian health minister, with 19 of them completely decimated, forcing thousands of innocent Ukrainian civilians wounded in Russian attacks in the east and south to be shuttled hundreds of miles to hospitals in western Ukraine to fight to stay alive, such as Olga Zuchenko.
Do you ever think you'll be able to go back to your normal life?
She ran a grocery store in the Luhansk region with her husband, Maxim Alexandrov, when 7 bombs hit their neighborhood, shrapnel pummeling her apartment balcony.
I have lost everything. I have lost my flat, my property, my health. We didn't expect to see it. We always have counted Russians as brotherly people. We never hoped they will exterminate us like that.
Olga has been here in this hospital, in this bed, for 1 month. She may never walk again. Their elderly neighbor was killed in the same attack. They tell me she had been so scared she stayed with them for a few days before her life was so brutally and unfairly snuffed out by Putin's bombs. By now it is clear these attacks on civilian apartment buildings are no accident. Entire civilian city blocks in Irpin and Mariupol, residential apartment buildings, have been obliterated. The facts lead to only one conclusion. The Russians are purposely slaughtering Ukrainians, moms and dads, children, grandparents. The Russian government, of course, denies targeting civilians. A group of American doctors with expertise in war injuries, because of unfortunate American experiences in Afghanistan and Iraq, were visiting the hospital when we were there, meeting with the mayor of Lviv, sharing what they knew about war wounds.
We wanted to share information from our experiences in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and in the civilian hospitals in the U.S.
Thank you for visit, thank you for support, and thank you for cooperation. It is very important for Ukraine and for the United States and for future.
These are brutal injuries that are unfamiliar to young surgeons in western Ukraine. Dr. Hanat Huk, chief surgeon, has seen an influx of thousands of these patients.
The injury that we have now is unbelievable.
What do you want the world to know about what you're seeing here?
I want the world to know that they need to know that the Russian forces, they don't fight with the Ukrainian army. They fight with the Ukrainian people. They kill in civilians, they kill in children, they destroy in our country.
Shrapnel now in my back, in my feet, everywhere.
Before he was a patient whose body is now riddled with shrapnel when his home was hit, Yuri Kanin from the Luhansk region was an anesthesiologist.
The flat where we lived in is destroyed. My parents' flat is destroyed. My wife's flat is destroyed. We lost everything.
He has a number an army medic wrote on his arm so they could keep track of patients needing help in the chaos of the war.
Causing war, creating war, is not just directly inflicting pain with bullets and bombs on a people. It's also creating conditions of desperation, which poses a whole other set of problems, whether disease or starvation or panic.
And these secondary effects from the chaos of Putin's war can also be fatal.
We had a happy life. Everything was perfect, and then everything changed very abruptly.
We met Ola Akenshine on her 45th birthday. She and her husband Alex and 10-year-old son had been hiding in their basement in the Kharkiv region for a month. The shelling, they say, was relentless.
We were so afraid, especially our kid was so afraid that we couldn't stay anymore.
When the building next door was flattened, she was so scared for her son's life, they got in their car and fled. She had not slept for 2 days. She was in a horrific car accident.
When I got in my first hospital in Kilmilsky, they couldn't help and operate severe broken skull and bones.
So you can't see right now?
Only silhouettes, like very far away.
Do you think you'll ever go back to the life you had?
I hope it will. The school where my child learned has been destroyed, but I hope if our house stays safe that we will return, rebuild. Our neighbor will rebuild our village, our town. I love my Ukraine so much. I would only want to live here in Ukraine.
Putin fashions himself an alpha male, a tough guy. One has to wonder why Putin thinks slaughtering civilians, seniors, women and children, mutilating women such as Olga and Olha, are those the actions of a strong, powerful man, or are they the actions of someone else, someone weaker and pathetic?
Thanks to Jake Tapper for that report. When we come back, thousands of Ukrainians are missing, and aid groups say
CNN. Closed captioning brought to you by Flex Seal family of products.
Hi, Phil Swift here. Get the Flex Seal family of products. Flex Seal Liquid, Flex Shot, Flex Tape, Flex Glue, and Flex Paste.
Welcome back. I'm John Vors, live in Lviv, Ukraine. We've just heard the air raid sirens going off here, warning of a possible strike, but we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. Ukraine's Prosecutor General says search crews have found 26 bodies under the rubble of 2 houses in Borodyanka. The town northwest of Kyiv has been left in ruins by Russian forces. Ukraine's president says he expects more atrocities will be discovered there, proving Russia is the greatest threat on the planet to freedom and security.
But so far, the Russian state and the Russian military are the greatest threat on the planet to freedom, to human security, to the concept of human rights as such. After Bucha, this is already obvious.
There are also disturbing reports of Ukrainian troops executing a wounded Russian soldier. This is a still photograph of the scene. The video itself is too gruesome to show. And it shows uniformed Ukrainians coming across 4 Russian casualties after a firefight. 3 appear to be dead, but 1 is badly wounded and gasping for air. 3 shots are then fired into the body, which then stops moving. When asked about this, Ukraine's foreign minister said the Ukrainian military adheres to accepted rules of warfare, but added there may be isolated violations which would be investigated. And then there are other stories emerging of Ukrainians being deported to Russia, forced to pass through what's called filtration or registration camps. Mariupol City Council said that Russia's failure to agree to evacuation corridors and its creation of the filtration centers are part of a broader effort to cover up potential war crimes carried out in his city. The council says Russian forces want to identify potential witnesses to the atrocities and destroy them. CNN cannot verify the claims, but we are hearing residents who say they were sent to Russia against their will, as well as reports of missing children. Katie Poglaze has our report from London.
Post after post of missing children in Ukraine, families desperate to find their loved ones. Most come from the cities most severely impacted by the fighting, and at the top of that list is Mariupol. These pictures of missing children were provided by parents and police for Magnolia, a Ukrainian NGO tracking missing children. Their Ukrainian director told CNN they are inundated with cases.
The number of missing children is closely to 2,000 per only 1 month.
A scene of utter devastation. Amid the chaos and uncertainty, families told CNN relatives, including children, went missing. And now, from this void, a story has emerged of people not missing but deported.
Unfortunately, some of people are stolen, forced stolen by Russians. Some were displaced in Russia, but no one knows information where exactly and for what.
CNN has spoken to multiple Mariupol residents who say soldiers from the Russian army forcibly evacuated them to Russia.
Some of those who asked to stay were told no.
This testimony is from Anna. We are using a pseudonym to protect her identity, and a CNN producer is reading her words. Like many others, Anna, a young woman, was living under bombardment in Mariupol.
They came in and said, "It's an order." He told us, "If you make a fuss, things will get worse."
Many told us that it started with a promise of evacuation. Soldiers came to where they were staying and told them it was dangerous and that they needed to get out. And so they went to shelters and then camps further and further into Russian territory. It was then that they realized that there was very little option to get out. CNN spoke to multiple people on the condition of anonymity, and using Anna's testimony, we started tracking the key locations along the deportation route. We are not identifying individual routes for the safety of our interviewees. This is the town of Bezimene. These tents indicate one of many sites across the town where interviewees told us they were taken on the first step of their journey. Anna described her stop as a, quote, registration camp, where they said they were interrogated for hours by Russian and Russian-backed forces. Russia claims these camps are to harbour refugees, another shelter seen here in Tagnarog. And while some interviewees saw the journey to Russia as a necessary passage to safety, others, including Anna, found the experience distressing and forced. This is Anna's migration card, a standard document provided to her by Russia upon entry, but it masks a troubling journey. Anna told CNN they were forced to surrender their phones and passports during intense security checks.
They photograph you from all angles. I felt we were treated like criminals or being held as the property of the Russian Federation. I didn't feel we were free to leave.
After questioning, interviewees told CNN they were transferred to other locations dotted across Russia and Russian-occupied territory. Some made onward journeys as far as Moscow and St. Petersburg. The limitations on freedom of movement for those interviewed by CNN seem to vary based on their access to money and family ties in Russia. Ukraine's government claims 45,000 people have been forcibly taken to Russia so far, which CNN cannot independently verify. International human rights conventions prohibit the forced deportation or transfer of civilians. After a week of transfers across Russian territory, Anna was finally given permission to leave and decided to drive to the border with Estonia, a route others have also managed to take, according to the Estonian authorities. However, others still remain in Russia or unaccounted for entirely. And while the conflict in Ukraine continues, the panicked search for the missing, feared dead or deported goes on. Katie Pogley, CNN, London.
It's just gone 37 minutes past the hour, and I will be back at the top of the hour. In the meantime, history in the U.S. on Thursday.
I'm Dana Bash in Warsaw, Poland, and this is CNN. On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed. With the round of applause there, the U.S. Supreme Court will have its first black woman justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, she watched the vote with President Joe Biden Thursday. Her confirmation follows a contentious hearing in the Senate. Despite that, Vice President Kamala Harris, who you just saw there, calls it a victory for the entire country.
I think it makes a very important statement about who we aspire to be, who we are, who we believe ourselves to be. It's a statement about that on our highest court in the land, we want to make sure that there's going to be full representation and the finest and brightest and the best. And that's what happened today. I'm very proud.
Jackson will be sworn in after Justice Stephen Breyer retires, and that will be sometime this summer. Now, an outbreak of COVID among Washington's power players is triggering alarm because of their proximity to President Joe Biden. Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has in fact tested positive for COVID. That happened on Thursday, a day after standing right next to the president at a bill signing. You see her there. And the Justice Department confirmed Attorney General Merrick Garland tested positive for COVID as well. He is not said to be experiencing any symptoms and is fully vaccinated. And Republican Susan Collins of Maine also has COVID-19. She and Garland were among 37 people who tested positive after attending a dinner of Washington elites over the weekend. Now, we have to stress here, so far, Mr. Biden has not tested positive for COVID. Now, Shanghai has yet to get a handle on the COVID outbreak there. Now, in the last few hours, government officials announced more than 21,000 new cases in the city. That's nearly all the cases in the entire country. The outbreak has reached nearby cities, and they, too, are now being put under lockdown. Christy Lou Stout is live for us in Hong Kong, and you've been following all of this, including these late-breaking details. I mean, all of these details, to be frank, are kind of shocking, with China's punishing zero-COVID lockdowns, still in force. It really seems like people in Shanghai are really being driven to the brink here.
Yes, Shanghai is buckling under the citywide lockdown with no end in sight, and some residents have hit breaking point, and they are speaking out. Now, earlier today, Shanghai reported over 21,000 new cases of COVID-19, and as the cases continue to rise, China continues to cling onto this tough zero COVID policy that is punishing to both lives and livelihoods in Shanghai. Now, this next video clip that we're going to air has gone viral this week in China, and I want you to watch and listen to this man vent his frustration about life under lockdown in Shanghai. Listen.
我猛地没去开门了回来还我一共就撤北了，我没错过了，我要外网的呀，一两次外网的了，我哪能北啊？我不是外了，本来是共产党的，我是他，共产党的。
He has reached his limit. Now, CNN cannot confirm the authenticity of that video. That video has gone viral. There's also rising anger over the continued food shortages in Shanghai. In this next clip, you'll see this really angry confrontation, a standoff between residents in a residential compound and police. At some point in this clip, the residents say, "We are starving." We, again, cannot independently verify this video. But on Thursday, the Shanghai government did say and did pledge they're working to resolve the food distribution issues in the city. And there is also rising concern and anger over this video that has gone viral this week. It's a disturbing account. Basically, this medical worker was caught on camera beating someone's pet to death, a pet corgi. It happened after the pet's owner apparently tested positive for COVID and was taken away to quarantine. And the dog, in view of eyewitnesses and to the person who shot this video, was bashed to death. Now, CNN has made several attempts to reach out to the residential committee overseeing this compound. We're waiting to get comment and any more clarity on what happened here. But look, in all these clips, Paula, they showcase the brutality and the desperation that are caused by these extreme measures, all done in the name of zero COVID. Back to you.
Yeah, and what's so disturbing is 21,000 cases now. This is clearly going to go on for some time yet. Christy, I really appreciate you giving us this update. Now ahead here for us on CNN Newsroom, distance and dark times couldn't stop a Ukrainian family from celebrating their daughter's birthday. Her emotional story when we return.
So, are you excited?
I am, but I'm a little nervous. This feels like a big change.
But it's not. I have one. People act like they're so hard to take care of or whatever, but it's totally a piece of cake.
Ukrainian life, even something as ordinary as celebrating a birthday. But despite these dark times, one Ukrainian family did their best to give their daughter a bright and joyful celebration. CNN's Rafael Romo has their story.
The cake is ready and most of the family has arrived. And what's a birthday party without birthday hats? Happy birthday. Grandpa and Grandma get their hats too, and it's time to light the candles. But there's something missing, or rather, someone, the birthday girl herself. Is that why her father seems pensive, sad perhaps? Darina Pelensky, a girl from the city of Lviv in western Ukraine, turns 10 today. But she is far, far away, 1,500 kilometers away. Technology allows for long-distance birthday wishes. We congratulate you on your birthday, Darina's grandmother tells her on the phone. We wish you happiness and health, and although we're not together, our hearts are with you. The story about how this family is celebrating a long-distance birthday is the story of thousands upon thousands of Ukrainian families whose lives have been upended by a Russian invasion.
How would you describe the experience of having witnessed the bombing?
It was scary.
Yuri Belensky is Darina's father.
You told me that you could actually hear the bomb coming here.
Yeah.
He says he wanted to keep his family together in their home, but when bombs flew right above his apartment building and exploded at a military base a few kilometers away, he knew it was time to say goodbye.
It's war. It's like a horror film. It's like a bad dream, and you wake up in the morning and understand that it is not a bad dream.
The following day, he drove his daughter, wife Marta, and mother Lesia to Krakow, Poland. There, they took a flight to Milan, Italy, where they're currently staying with family, far away from any airstrikes.
How do you explain to a 10-year-old girl that the only country she's ever known is at war and that bombs are falling?
We explain that it's Russia come to our country, and bad things are happening now. People die, and it's very dangerous.
When the family finishes singing happy birthday, there's not a dry eye in the room. Everybody gives the birthday girl a virtual kiss. And moments later, they all have to run to the underground shelter after the air raid siren goes off once again.
What is your hope for the future?
My hope for the future that everything will be okay. I know that everything will be okay. We win the war.
And when Ukraine wins the war, Pelensky says he will be able to be reunited with his family. Darina's 8th and 9th birthday parties were canceled because of COVID-19. Her father hopes the whole family will be able to celebrate her 11th birthday next year together in a country at peace where children are no longer afraid of falling bombs. Rafael Romo, CNN, Lviv, Ukraine.
And millions looking for similar reunions. Now, if you would like to help people in Ukraine, please go to cnn.com/impact. You'll find several ways to help. So many of you already have. Already, viewers have contributed more than $7 million for humanitarian relief efforts in Ukraine. And finally, for us, we are just hours away from the launch of Axiom 1, which will carry 4 civilians now to the International Space Station. It's the inaugural mission for the commercial space flight company known as Axiom Space, and the first time an all-private crew will go to the ISS. Now, they're expected to dock with the orbiter on Saturday and spend 8 days working on experiments alongside American and European astronauts and, of course, Russian cosmonauts. Despite tensions between Russia and the West, hope remains the ISS can remain a symbol of cooperation.
Honestly, I think that's one of the reasons we've been able to have an International Space Station. Some people that don't care so much about space care about international relations, and having a space station where we can cooperate, I think, is really important for a peaceful future.
And I want to thank you for watching. I'm Paula Newton. Stand by. Right after the break, we will have live